Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, a webinar about the flexible process, the second webinar about this topic that will talk about the IT tools for planning and monitoring the flexible process. As usual, you are muted during this webinar, so you will have the possibility to enter your questions in the Q&A panel of the GoToWebinar. And as usual, we put these answers available for you via the CEN and CENELEC website. By the way, the first part of this webinar was already put available on the website. You should have received the link if you joined us the last time. We will do the same for this webinar. You will receive the PowerPoint in your inbox later today, and the recording of the webinar will be made available via the website. So please let me take a moment to introduce the speakers of today. My colleagues Constant and Alberto will guide you through the IT tools during this presentation. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody. This is the second part of the webinars we organized to present the flexible process. I hope that those of you that have not attended the webinar in February, the part one, managed to see the presentation on our YouTube channel. The link was in the reminder for this webinar. Anyway, we will, in order to ensure that there is a common understanding on the main principles, we will have also a short recap of the principles of the flexible process. The presentation is quite rich, several slides. We prefer to have a consistent reference material for all of you. So after the webinar, you will have all the elements in your hands. In the presentation, we'll try to stay within the hour and a half that this webinar is supposed to last. Of course, as the previous one, also for this webinar, we will make the recording and the slides available. Okay, let's start. So this is the agenda of today. We will go through the main principles that have been already given in the previous webinar, and then we will focus on the IT tools for planning for CEN and CENELEC, highlighting the difference between the behaviors, instructions for these two organizations, and then also the tools for the monitoring process in order to ensure that target dates are met. And then we'll spend some work on mandated work, because the flexible process will be applied for work items, also for mandated work. And hopefully you will, these tools will be an extra support for you. I give the floor to my colleagues, Constant.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. So my name is Constant from the Standardization Department of CEN and CENELEC. And to start this webinar, I just want to recap some of the key principles of the standard development process. As it was mentioned, if you need more details about those principles, you can have a look to the previous webinar that was held in February. So let's start with those principles. So it's a new process actually for the standards development, and this is something that has been approved by the technical board of CEN and CENELEC in 2019. And so now it's really time to start the implementation of this concept of those criteria for having more flexibility in the development of the standard. And what is the main principle is that in that respect? Is the following. Basically, the technical committee are now fully responsible for the timely and effective delivery of the standard. So this concept of flexibility very much refers to the fact that it's the responsibility of the TCs to decide work item per work item according to their needs, resources, and expertise, how much time to allocate to the different drafting stage for the development of a standard. So there's a clear autonomy and ownership for the technical committee to plan and to organize their work within a specified maximum time frame. And on the other hand, this comes with more responsibility for the TC, which means more a full commitment from the technical committee to deliver the project and the standard in time, which means in terms of full commitment in terms of planning and full commitment in terms of ensuring that the targets are met. So what is the scope of this concept and of this process? So as it was already mentioned in the previous presentation, this process is applicable to any homegrown CEN and or CENELEC work items and CEN work items under the Vienna Agreement with ISO, but with CEN lead. And of course, this includes the candidate harmonized standard, for which a special attention must be given to the deadline which are set in the standardization request. So this is the scope of this process. And in terms of implementation, so as mentioned, it was decided by the technical board in 2019, and now with this webinar, this is the final milestone for the kickstart of the implementation of this process. So which will be applied to the work items for which the new work item proposal has been launched after the 1st of April 2020, so which means in less than 3 weeks. So what does it mean in practice? By launching, we mean that the TC approval decision being launched as from the 1st of April in CEN and in CENELEC, because we consider that it's important for you as technical body officer to listen to those 2 different webinars to be fully aware of the principle and the consequences before being able to implement it. So this is something that is coming very soon. And
it's important to stress one aspect. We have changed the starting of this process to the work items that would be launched for the new work item proposal, because of course, after this webinar, the TC Secretary will have to plan the work for each work items, and then they will prepare the new work item proposals. And of course, only now it's possible for you to use the IT tools. In the previous webinar, there was a mistake. We say the new work item proposal approved after 1st of April. Of course, this is not applicable because these work item proposals were then already prepared in February. So it's for all the new work item proposals that are launched after 1st of April for TC approval. And then, of course, the starting of the process in CEN is with the CEN TC decision, and of course in CENELEC is only with the CENELEC decision.
Thank you, Alberto. So yes, indeed, in a nutshell, and as the key principle you have to keep in mind with this new process is that as a result, the TC will have a stronger ownership of its project, which will definitely improve the timely development and delivery of the standard, and also which will also reduce the risk of the deletion of the work item by this stronger ownership of the project. So to continue the recap, I just want to show you the process, the standard development process as it stands today. So we started from rigidity actually, because as you can see on the screen, there are 2 stages which are devoted to the technical committee work. Those are stage A and stage E. And for the time being, those 2 stages are rigid, which means that the technical committee have 34 weeks in order to deliver under stage A, the first draft to be submitted to inquiry, the PREN, and for stage G, 34 weeks to deliver the final draft to be delivered for formal vote. As you are surely already familiar with that, there are some additional stages which concern the internal CCMC process. So you can see D, which is the duration of the public inquiry, because as you know, in order for a standard, for a specification to get the status of European standard, it shall go under a public inquiry, which will last 12 weeks. And then under F, you have the formal vote period of 8 weeks. And between all those stages, it's the internal process in TCMC for the editing and for the translation. So this is the process as it stands today. And as of the 1st of April, we will shift from rigidity to flexibility, actually. And this still concerns those two different stages, A and E, which will become flexible, which means that it will be the responsibility of the technical committee to decide on the amount of time to be allocated for those two stages. So in the past, those stages were fixed, and now they become flexible. So with a commitment by the technical committee to actually deliver on time. And now it's time for some questions.
Yes, we are going to open a poll. So the first question for our poll is: to which work items will the flexible process be applicable? So give us a second to launch the poll over here. Should normally now.
So the question is actually to which work items will the flexible process be applicable? So select one of these options. All CEN and CENELEC work items, including those under the Vienna Agreement and Frankfurt Agreement, any ongoing CEN only, or any ongoing CEN, CENELEC, and CEN work items under the Vienna Agreement with CEN lead. So the floor is yours.
So yes, answers are coming in. Thank you very much for that. I see some different opinions on that. Okay, I suggest that we close the poll and that we share it with our audience.
Yes.
So, thank you for voting.
So we want to congratulate the 73% of you that gave the right answer, which is the third one. So it's applicable only to homegrown CEN and/or CENELEC standards and to CEN work items under Vienna Agreement with CEN lead. Therefore, for instance, CENELEC work items under Frankfurt Agreement are not included. And also question number 2, any homegrown CEN only is not correct because it's not complete.
So thank you for participating, and let's continue. You will have the opportunity to respond some more questions later on. So one more recap, which is about the operational aspect, so you can have a complete view of the standard development process. So as I mentioned, we have those two stages, A and E, which are under the responsibility of the technical committee. TA is the stage A, the duration for the delivery of the draft for public inquiry. TE is the stage for the handling of the comments received at public inquiry towards the finalization of the final draft. So there are some timeframes with that. The total time for the TC work should be inferior or equal to 68 weeks. So this is something that does not change. This is something that will remain the same. We will further elaborate on that later on, but you can already notice that the technical committee will be able to request one tolerance of 39 weeks at a specific moment in the process, and which means that the total maximum time for the TC to deliver the project is those 68 weeks plus the tolerance request of 39 weeks. So a total of approximately 25 months. So let's continue with that on the operation aspects. So the planning, when the planning should take place. and it shall take place actually when preparing the new work item form for approval. So for approval by the TC in CEN, as it is a delegated BT decision, and for approval in CENELEC by the technical board of CENELEC. So it's really important that before you submit those new work items for formal approval, that you plan the time that is needed to deliver the project. So we will elaborate on that further on, but it will be the responsibility of the secretary in consultation with the chair, with the convenant, and with the working group expert as relevant before formally submitting the request. So what is it about? So it's, as mentioned, it's about the allocation of time, the duration, work item per work item, by indicating 3 target dates in both CEN and CENELEC new work item form. So starting with the start of the project, you will have to decide how much time is needed to deliver the inquiry draft and how much time will be needed to deliver the formal draft, keeping in mind that the dispatch of the first working draft is half of the time that is devoted for the delivery of the inquiry draft.
Please focus on the concept of duration of the stage. So how much time you need for the stage A and for stage E. Then this duration will be translated through a target date. But think as a TC on the duration. How much time do you need? How many weeks? You say, or you can think also how many months. Try to translate this in weeks. You will see that for CEN, the planning instrument that will be available in the working area will help you in this exercise. For CENELEC, it's different, and so keep the concept of how much time do we need for stage A and the E, the duration.
And then following the what, we got the how, because we give some flexibility, but having said that, we still have some requirement in terms of the duration of the period. So for the stage E, between the start of the project and the delivery of the draft for public inquiry, we shall have a minimum of 1 week. For stage E, which means the handling of the comments received from the public inquiry towards the finalization of the final draft, there shall be a minimum of 6 weeks. So, which means that the maximum time for stage E is 62 weeks.
For stage A.
For stage A, sorry. 62 weeks indeed, because as you may have noticed, we need a minimum of 6 weeks for the stage E. And so when planning the stage A, the times for dispatching the first working draft, the inquiry draft, the final European standard are also calculated by default. And as I mentioned previously, the milestone, the target for the delivery of the first working draft is half of the time of TA.
So as Constant has explained, it's clear that so the key date is the time under stage A, so the first one. Because once you define stage A, by default, you have the time for the circulation of the first working draft. So it's still in the new work item form to indicate the target date for the first working draft, but actually since it's the half of the time under stage A, it's calculated by default once you define the target date for stage A. And stage E, of course, is what is left from stage A, and then it's up to you how much time you want to allocate to stage E. Minimum 6 weeks, because you need time to go through the comments. Even if you want to skip the formal vote anyway, you need to go through the comments of inquiry. And so stage E can be from 6 to see the last the one to the end a question on the slide.
And further to that, we can also mention the minimum of 1 week for stage A, so which can be seen as something very low. Of course, difficult to produce a draft within 1 week, but in case of revision of standard, we may already have a solid draft that is available. That's why we want to give this flexibility to the technical committee to proceed very fast in that respect, because the ambition is the timely delivery of the standard, of course. So it's the end of the recap of the principles. So we are ready to start with the practical implementation with the IT tools. So as you mentioned, as technical committee, as technical body officer, take ownership of your project, and it will be time to plan accordingly your work by allocating how much time is needed and by defining accordingly the target dates. So let's move on with the first part.
Yes, and now we go into the presentation of the new IT tools. This is the IT tool for planning in order to help you to define the target dates. We split the presentation for CEN TCs, so for CEN TC secretaries, and then for CENELEC. So for CEN TC, actually, let's say that the novelty impacts the CEN TC secretaries, because it's a novelty in the projects online working area that is currently used by the CEN TC secretary. I leave this slide for additional further, I would say, restating the concept.
And we can already move to the practical aspects which relate to the preparation of the new work item. So in CEN, again, we are within the CEN dimension. So we know that there are different practices according to the technical bodies, but what is the common denominator is the following. It's important to know that there are two different tools to register and to prepare a new work item, actually. There is the CEN new work item form, which will be submitted to the technical committee for approval, but there's also the project's online working area in which the TC secretary will encode the data which relate to the CEN new work item form. So in terms of process, in terms of steps, the very first one relates to the technical body officer, so the TC chair and TC secretary, in cooperation with the working group convener to define the planning of the project, taking into account the TC or the working group needs and resources. Then it's up to the secretary to allocate the project timeframe by indicating the duration and the 3 target dates in the CEN new work item form. So for the first working draft, the dispatch of the inquiry draft, and the dispatch of the formal vote draft. What is important to know at this stage with the introduction of this new IT tool is that we would like to invite you within CCMC not to start with filling the CEN new work item form, but to start with the project online working area, because within this tool, you will have the possibility to have a look to the proposed planning, to define the dates, so that you will be able to get all the dates for the progress of the project. Then you will be able to save those dates and to transfer them to the CEN new work item form for approval by the technical committee. So by using first the project online working area, it will definitely help you in planning the project and transporting those data to the new work item form for approval by the technical committee. And then the technical committee will take the decision to approve the new work item. So let's have a look to this project online working area dedicated to this flexible standard process. So it's under item 17, where the TC secretary will be asked to provide the target dates for the below key stages. So as you can see, this encompasses the different stages for the development of a standard. And those 2 lines are editable. So by calculating the duration for the delivery of the draft, you will be able to provide target dates, and also taking into account the need to fill in the project start date. So by filling in those 3 dates, the system will calculate the default targeted for the project. And here, as you can see on the screen, it's the default time frame, so 34 weeks for stage A and 34 weeks for stage E.
So the first step, this tool will calculate according to the old process. By default, 34 weeks for stage A. You will see the first, it's a 17 plus 17. Of course, the circulation of the first working draft is half time of dispatch inquiry, and then you have to add these two amounts for a total of 34 weeks. And then you will see also the 34 weeks when there is code 4599 dispatch from Marbot draft to CCMC. And as Constant say, now it will be time to edit the date under 3099. So follow the green arrow, editable. So this is editable, and there you will insert the date that you want. This tool will help you because automatically the weeks will be calculated. So the column where you have the weeks will be calculated according to the date. So this will be also for you a help in order to plan exactly the duration of the stage that you have agreed in the TC.
Indeed, so this is the default time frame, but we can already jump to the first example, which is for a specific project. For instance, the TC plans to dedicate 36 weeks to complete stage A, and then 32 weeks to complete stage E. So which means 68 weeks in total, which complies with the maximum time frames. So in that respect, 2 weeks will be added to the default time frame in the stage 3099. So in the previous slide, we had 17 and 17, but by the need to implement 36 weeks, we now have 18 plus 18 to reach 36. And then the target dates will be automatically recalculated. So 1 week will be added for 2060, 2 weeks for 4020, and 2 weeks for 4060, as you can see here on the screen. Example 2. 36 weeks are needed to complete stage A, and only 29 weeks are needed for stage E, which means 65 weeks in total. Therefore, 3 weeks will be subtracted from 4599, as you can see here, and as it was the case for the previous example, the target dates will be automatically recalculated accordingly. So as it was mentioned, you can really play with those dates here. You can see that the 13 and 12 week will never change because this is something that relates to the CCMC internal process. But your ownership of the project is really materialized at those stages, the different weeks here and the weeks here to prepare the final draft for formal vote. Then we can continue with some practical example for you to check what is correct, what is not.
Okay, let's see now some other examples. So you will see that we have considered 34 weeks for completing stage A. So 17 to deliver the first working draft and 17 until the end of 3099 and 36 weeks for stage E. But then there is an alert. So this is an internal check of the system saying, be careful, you made an error because you have planned 70 weeks in total. You know that the maximum is 68. 36 plus 34 is 70. So this tool will help you also to address the possible error. Another example, you have the draft ready. So you start working on the 4th of March. On the 6th of March, Few days later, you're ready to give everything for inquiry because the draft was ready. Therefore, you have 0 weeks under stage A, 66 for stage E. So in total is 66, so it's less than 68, but there is an error because the minimum time under stage A should be at least 1 week. Last example, you have 34 weeks under stage A, 3 weeks under stage E. So in total, you plan that you need in total 34 plus 3, 37 weeks, which is less than 68, is the maximum, so it's okay. But there is a problem because 3 weeks for stage E is not enough. What is the minimum constant for stage E?
What is the minimum? The minimum shall be 6 weeks.
Voila.
Yes.
That's why there is an error. Okay, and now just to show you practically what you will see in the projects online working area. So we say it's a section 17. Section 17 anyway opens when you click on section 8. So you will go on the projects online working area. You will click on the creation of a new work item form. And you will compile all the section before, and then when you arrive to section 8, you will play with this tool as we have just seen. You will insert a project start date, and another novelty is that the start of the project can be also a future date. We will go more in detail with these when we will cover the mandated work, because this is very useful when you need to make a big plan for a big work program. So let's say that you have the possibility now to plan a huge workload for a work program spanning in 4 or 5 years. And so even providing starting date that are in the future. So what you do, you fill in all these elements, and then, so because you are drafting the new work item form, then you save it, you export the PDF or the Word as you prefer, and so you will attach this for TC decision. What is the advantage is that if the TC will approve, so if the SMTC will approve, then you have the green light, you can come back here on the tool, everything has been already pre-filled in by you, and therefore it's very easy for you to go to the end. Of course, if there is not, if the TC disapproves, in this case, this project will be dropped in the system. But please use this tool. So to prepare the new work item form, you go in the projects online working area, you follow the steps until section 8. From section 8, when clicking here, inquiry plus formal vote, this tool will be available. Fill it in all the dates, save it, export it, and submit it to the TC decision. And this is how the target dates will look like in the form that is automatically generated by this tool. Okay, and now we go to the second question time. How shall CEN TC secretary prepare the new work item form for TC approval? We will launch the poll, so you will be able to click on your screen. On the right selection, I hope.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's I can really congratulate with the 92% of you. So use the working area, the new tool, save the new work item form that you have pre-filled in, download the file, submit it to the TC decision. Only 3%, now the figure went up to 7%. Propose to use the template in Word and calculate manually target dates. So this is still possible, but please, the recommendation is use the tool. You will avoid errors and you will not make the work twice. Of course, the last one is very wrong. Use template in Word, the target dates are optional. No, target dates is the main, is how the principle of flexible process is applied.
So that was the CEN side, and now we can jump to the CENELEC dimension, because as you know, CEN and CENELEC are two different standardization organizations. So the objective is to apply the same principle, but it has different implications in both organizations. So for the CENELEC part only, so this is something that was mentioned already. It concerns homegrown European standards, so not the standards which are under parallel process under the Frankfurt Agreement. And actually, the main difference between CEN and CENELEC is that in CENELEC, the working area feature are now open for the work item, but filling in the working area plan is managed by the CENELEC data service team in CCMC. So the data team will use this tool, but not the TC secretary. So it will be the responsibility of the TC secretary to plan accordingly the duration of the project for each stages of the project and to communicate those data to CCMC in order to encode those elements. So preparing the new work item, so it is slightly different in CENELEC actually, but still the principle remains. So first of all, it's the responsibility of the technical body officers to define the planning of the project, taking into account the needs and resources of the technical committee. Then, as it was the case in CEN, the secretary will allocate the project timeframe by indicating the 3 target dates in the CENELEC new work item form. So in that case, the CENELEC secretary will not be able to start with the project online working area to define the planning, but will be able to use one tool only, which is the new work item form, which will have to be submitted to the TC for approval. And then by filling in the 3 different target dates, the TC will take the decision to start the new work item. And as you know, the approval of a new work item in CENELEC is not a delegated BT decision, so it requires the submission of the new work item form, the new work item request to BT for approval by correspondence with a total of 4 weeks. And then this is the form for the new work item proposal, which is very well known by the CENELEC secretaries. So the principles are the same, but you will have to focus on this form to provide the target dates for those 3 different stages.
Yes, so in CENELEC, you will still use the template for the new work item proposal. Something we would like to stress that currently is not included as a separate element in this template. You see here where you have to provide 3 target dates. Of course, from the moment where you identify the target dates to the moment where the clock starts ticking, some times pass because you need the TC approval, then you need the PM to prepare the document for BT decision, then you have the 4 weeks of the BT approval. Therefore, it could be difficult for you to identify the right target date. So the advice is put the 3 target dates, but also indicate here the duration, if possible in weeks, if it is difficult in months, but put the duration in weeks, because if there is any delay in the approval process, for instance, if BT maybe disagree, or maybe there is any kind of issue, of course, the date that you have indicated, if you put as a date for inquiry February 2022, but there is a delay in the BT approval, therefore you are losing time. If you put the duration, the data team will be able to address this issue that is not directly your responsibility. So consider the target dates. Consider that the target dates start ticking after the BT approval. So what will happen after? Once CENELEC BT approves the project, the CENELEC data team will encode the following dates in the system, and this is not really new. So points for attention. The TC takes a decision through the CIV or for the new work item form or at the meeting. Then there is time to prepare the BT decision, also with the cooperation of the CCMC PMs. And BT decision is 4 weeks. What really counts is the duration in order for the TC to complete the 2 stages, and this is what we would like you to indicate in the template of the new work item form as an additional information to the target dates. Of course, from our side, if there are delays of the internal process, so for instance, you know that after stage A, drafting of the EN, then there are 5 weeks for the CCMC editors, plus there are 8 weeks for translation, then there is the inquiry. But if there is any delay in the editing or in the translation, so this is what we call as internal process, the planned date for dispatching the formal vote will be postponed appropriately. We don't want, if there are delays that do not depend on TC, we will grant you the same amount of time that you have considered under stage E, so the stage for handling the comments of inquiry and preparing the document for formal vote. The TC is not penalized. And now we have the third question. In CENELEC, when providing target dates, what does the TC need to pay attention to? You will see the 3 possible answers on your screen. Three more seconds. So 94%.
So indeed, not even 94, but 95% of good feedback actually, because this is what is needed to consider the time to get the BT decision, which will be made by correspondence for a duration of 4 weeks, and to include the duration of the time that is needed in the new work item form. And in that respect, what is important to note is to keep regular, constant contact with your CENELEC program manager to make sure that everything is always on track. So it's not up to the data team to decide on the date. This is the responsibility of the TC. And in that respect, the target dates are not created by default because the TC will be owning this process. So very well done. And we can go back, continue actually with the presentation, which relates to the second part, ensuring that target dates are met.
So now the second set of support that the IT tools can give to the TC secretaries concern the monitoring phase to ensure the target dates are met. And in this case, the novelty can be applied to CEN and CENELEC. So here we are in the projects online. And this will be the new display of the life of the process. So in the first column, there are the phase, the milestones, and the stage code. Of course, I invite you to focus on the stage codes that are key for the flexible process. So it's of course 1099 when everything starts, circulation of the first work draft 2060, dispatch inquiry draft to CCMC, so 3099, and dispatch of the formal vote draft to CCMC 4599. So once you, so let's go back to your new work item 4 that is approved. So by TC in CEN, by BT in CENELEC. So the CEN TC secretary can come back on the working area and confirm the project. And then this is the view on the projects online. The CENELEC TC secretary will have given the document to the data team. You know very well what is also the email address for data team. Data team will encode dates that you have decided. And this is what you will see. So this is the time zero. So there is the decision on the work item proposal. So you will see the initial plan is built according to the process. The realized date in this case is decision, so is when everything starts. And based on the realized date, the plan will be adjusted. So in this case, of course, when we are starting, the adjusted plan is equal to the initial plan. Okay, now let's make some example. So let's imagine that the initial plan foresee that the TC will deliver the first the draft for inquiry on the 4th of April, which is 8 months from the beginning of the start of the process. It means that after 4 months, the first working draft must be delivered. That's why you have the date of 8 May 2020. And actually, well, we made quite a radical example. Actually, the working draft is ready after 5 days after the start of the process. So this is really a bad planning. But it's an early delivery. And so the draft is delivered already in March 2020. It means that the initial plan following this date will be adjusted as follows. So all the date will be brought forward. So all the internal process will start earlier, with the exception of 4599. So the date for the final dispatch to formal vote, you will see it's the same. Why? Because this is one of the principles of the flexible process. The time you gain under stage A at the beginning will be given to you under stage E. So now you will have more time under stage E, but then it's up to the TC to decide what to do. You can so you can use also the additional time to deliver the draft for the formal vote, or you can stick to the previous plan where you had X amount of weeks, or you can even deliver early. What it counts there is the release date, so when you will actually dispatch the draft for formal vote to CCMC. So this must be by the deadline that is here on the screen, so by the 22 October 2021. Of course, as I say, if you're able to deliver before, this will result in an early delivery of the process. So time to market of the standards has been optimized. What happens for a late delivery? Let's see. So you plan to dispatch the draft inquiry on the 26th of August. Therefore, the circulation of the first working draft will be 29 of April. Then you met the first deadline for the first working draft, but you are late in delivery, the dispatch of the draft for inquiry. So it's 15 September, it means 20 days overdue. 20 days overdue, it means that the adjusted plan will change, and of course you will lose. So all the dates will be postponed of 20 days, but as before, the date for the delivery of the formal draft was supposed to be 13 October, is still 13 October. It means that you are eating time for stage E. Be very careful that in the example we put a delay of 20 days, because if the delay is more than 4 weeks, the work item will be deleted. Therefore, the maximum delay delivery under the dispatch of the draft for inquiry is 4 weeks after the deadline. The same goes for the delivering the draft for formal vote. And now here also an example for formal vote. So you will see that the dispatch inquiry draft to CMC, so stage 3099, was supposed to be 10 of November, has been effectively 10 of November, and therefore the adjusted plan does not change. And then the dispatch to the draft to formal vote to CCMC was supposed to be on the 4th of April. In this case, the TC has been able to deliver the draft in advance. And of course, the the initial plan will be adjusted and the standards will be published earlier. The time you gain under stage E will de facto trigger an early publication of the document.
So, thank you, Alberto. Let's continue with the second part of this presentation, which is about the review of the planning, because as you can see with projects, you can monitor the progress of the project, but then we would like also to give you the opportunity to take some corrective actions in that respect. So there are 3 different approaches, 3 different tools in that respect. So at least 4 weeks after the dispatch of the first working draft, the TC leadership with the relevant convener shall decide on one of the following options. So the first one, if everything is on track, then it's the original planning will be kept. If there are some delays, there's the one change option to change the planning. And it's only one change that may be agreed by the technical committee. Third option is the tolerance. And this is something that was mentioned previously. One tolerance of 39 weeks may be agreed by the TC and can be asked anytime in the process, but not before 4 weeks after the dispatch of the first working draft. So those are the 3 different options for the technical committee to review its planning. So first option, keep the original one. In practice, it means nothing to do. Everything is on track. Let's continue to progress the project. Second option, the one change option. So in practice, what does it mean? So this is something that has to be decided by the technical committee and something that is possible to implement when the current milestone is either circulation of first working drafts already realized for 4 weeks and by the end of stage E. So as you can see on the screen, this is within this duration. As a result, in order to implement this one change option, the CEN secretary will be able to adjust the timing in the project's online working area. And for CENELEC secretary, it will be about notifying by email the CENELEC data team in CCMC. So the one change option, so it's the same interface within CEN and CENELEC. However, it is implemented by the CEN-TC secretary directly and in CENELEC by sending an email to the data team. But the interface will remain the same, which means that the data team will use the same tool. And this is what you can see on the screen, modification type, change the planning of a work item. So you will be able to adjust everything, and this will be translated in projects as well. Last option is the tolerance request.
Tolerance request. So the tolerance request, so tolerance remains as an option. We will call it 39 weeks, exactly the same of the 9 months as it is known today. And also the way it is requested will not change. So TC decision in CEN will be implemented directly by TC secretary in the project's online working area. And the TC secretary request to data team in CENELEC through the email address that you know very well. It's important to stress, because this will be one of the questions that when we say that at least 4 weeks after dispatching the first working draft, of course, for some work items, you will have planned a very short period for delivering the draft to CCMC. Therefore, the concept of review planning is not applicable. If you put in your document, in your new work item form, that you need only 3 weeks to dispatch the draft to inquiry, of course, you are all these planning is not applicable. But you'll be able to ask for the tolerance. So you will not be able to go for the one change option, but you'll be able to ask for the tolerance. Okay. The tolerance can be asked anytime. I'm just realizing that the first line is not correct for the reason I've just explained. So just don't consider the first line. So and also the anytime except when you are with a delay of 4 weeks for dispatching the draft for inquiry. So within those 4 weeks of delay, you can ask for the tolerance. 1 day more, you cannot anymore. So please respect end of the the target date for delivering the inquiry draft plus 4 weeks is the maximum time when you can ask for the tolerance. If you go over the 4 weeks, as explained before, the work item will be cancelled. We know that it happens very, very often, unfortunately, that the tolerance are asked 1 or 2 days after the work item is, after the delay, maximum delay, which the work item was supposed to be delivered. And the same goes for the stage E. So when the draft, you have the target date for delivering the draft for formal vote, until 4 weeks of delay will be still possible for you to ask the tolerance. After the 4 weeks of delay, the work item will be deleted. Therefore, it will be no more possible, of course.
And we have the final question time. When will the work item be actually deleted? So work item with a delay plus 4 weeks at inquiry and formal vote. Work items with a delay of 2 weeks at inquiry and formal vote, or only upon TC communication. So it's up to you to provide feedback. Close. So what is the result?
You closed it.
I closed it already.
There.
Sorry for that.
It's okay.
Can we go back to it? Yes.
Yes.
So indeed, congratulations, 92% of good responses. After a delay of 4 weeks after the target date for the dispatch of the draft to inquiry or formal vote, CCMC will proceed with the deletion of the work item. And so it's not 2 weeks, you will have up to 4 weeks, which is the maximum delay. And only upon TC communication, no, that's not enough, because when triggering the new work item, you committed to a specific time frame. So congratulations for the 92%. So let's continue the presentation. So what else do we have on the plate? The alerts. Yes, that's an important part actually. For you as a TC secretaries, for you a technical body officer to get some help in monitoring and planning the different projects. So currently the TC officer are notified when an action is expected via Project Online, where an alert can appear next to the specific work item, and also with CCMC sending monthly email notification, including a list of all those work items under alert. So there will be no changes in terms of channels. The communication will be done via the same channels. There's only a change in terms of timing for you that is important to note. So the alerts which relate to the circulation of the first working draft will become 8 weeks before the deadline instead of 1 month, so 1 additional month for you to take action. And regarding the alert for the dispatch of the inquiry or formal vote draft to CCMC, it will now be 12 weeks alert before the deadline, so 3 months instead of 6, because we may have noticed that by sending an alert 6 months in advance, it will not trigger immediate action, because as a matter of fact, people would consider that they still have enough time. But by sending an alert 3 months in advance, it would be the right time to act, actually. Then let's jump to the third part of this presentation, which is the focus on the mandated work, which is also the essence, one of the raison d'être of CEN and CENELEC, to develop harmonized standards which can provide presumption of conformity to some specific directives or regulation or legislation in the European Union. So a specific focus on that because this is also the aim of this flexible standard process, the timely delivery of the standard to the European market. So you can see on this time frame that there is some additional stages that have been introduced in parallel and which relates to the assessment stage. So stage H, which is about the assessment of the first working draft, which is not a mandatory stage, but this is something we highly recommend to do in order to secure the maximum changes to get a compliant assessment. You also have the stage I, which is about the assessment before the start of the public inquiry and before the start of the formal vote. So when it comes to the work under a specific mandate, it's important for the TC to keep in mind when planning the project, to keep in mind the deadlines in the standardization request and all those aspects that relate to the assessment process. So as always, an important reminder, it's important for the technical committees to make sure that all documents will be available for the assessment in this process. So it's not only the standard and its requirement or guideline as such, but it's also the formal part like the Annex ZD in CEN or the Annex ZZ in CENELEC, which makes the link between the essential requirement in the directive and the requirement in the standard. Also the part, the Annex ZD, which relate to the normative reference, which is also an important, very important element. So in case of a negative assessment before the formal vote, a new stage becomes necessary, as you can see here on the screen, and which can give the possibility for the technical committee to delay the start of the formal vote of a maximum of 12 weeks in order to solve the issues that were raised by the consultant during the formal vote assessment. So these are obvious elements that you are already aware of, but in the context of the flexible standard development, these elements really need to be taken into account.
So please have a sound allocation of time for stage A and E. Be positive, but not too positive. So don't put too short duration for stage A and E. We see that with the assessment, sometimes things are not that easy. So you will have time in this way to address any potential issues.
Let's continue with a concrete example, which will show the added value of the flexible standard process for the work under a specific mandate. Because here, for instance, we have taking a specific example which relates to medical devices. For instance, in this standardization request, it is requested to deliver 150 standard by 2024. So more than 100 work items are requested by a specific deadline. But with the tool we showed previously in CEN and in some extent in CENELEC as well, you can start the planning already today by defining different starting dates for different projects, so you can finally reach the deadline as indicated in the standardization request. So those IT tools are very important tool for you to plan different projects in parallel and in a very transparent way as well, because by providing this planning, you can share it with all relevant TC member, you can share it with all those people involved in the standardization process in a very transparent way. So this is what I just mentioned. You can put different project start date and plan the project accordingly.
Yes, exactly. So you will be able to give a planning at the same time, so time zero, when you receive the standardization request with a huge work program as it is now, the new approach of the European Commission, so in the example that is on the screen, is the standardization request on medical device that is currently under approval at the Committee of Standards. So it has not been yet approved and sent to us by the European Commission. After we will have an internal consultation with the CEN and CENELEC BT to decide to approve it or not. But it's just an example that we as a system, we may face, if we accept the standardization request, the need to deliver all the standards that are in the standardization request. If we want to be sure that TC has the tools in order to make a planning of all these huge work program. And the planning should be done in time zero. So selection of the TC, which standards will be developed in the next weeks. So for which the starting in the planning, the start date should be the day after the approval of the standardization request by BT, and which can be developed maybe 2 years. See, the deadline is more than 4 years from now, and of course we hope with a flexible process to deliver standards earlier. So we don't consider anymore the concept of the 3 years time frame as we were used to do it. We want to deliver standards. We want to optimize the time for TC to work on standards. And therefore, some of them could be published by 2022 and another set by 2024. We hope that now with the planning tool, you will receive a concrete help to this purpose. I think that we come to the end of presentation with some minutes in advance. You noticed during the presentation that there are still things that require maybe some adjustment from our side. So, for instance, when the tolerance can be requested, but following your questions and your feedback that you will give to us after this presentation, we will try to address all of them and see if actually we have not considered something that is very, very important. So I really recommend you to ask questions and also provide feedback after the end of this session. We will not be able to answer to all your questions now, but all of them will be answered. We will make available the table with all the answers along with the presentation and the recording of this presentation. So we will have still from here to the beginning of the implementation of the flexible process, we have less than 20 days. We hope to solve any emerging issues in the next week. And then we are ready to start.
Yeah. And just to mention that, as it is the case for all standardization projects, the CCMC staff is, of course, here available for you to provide support, advice, any help that you may require, because it is tools that we are providing for you in order to plan efficiently in a very transparent manner. But as always, it is a collaborative exercise, so it's important to get your feedback so that we can improve each other in order to provide standard very timely to the European market. So thank you very much for joining this